Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to our first episode of Laura and Leonie's Systemic Stories, Stories of Practice and Possibility. We thought for the first episode, it would be really helpful for you to get to know us a little bit and why we wanted to do this and what our hopes and intentions are. So, Laura, would it be okay if I throw to you and you kick us off with starting our introductions?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Hawkins. I come to you from North Brisbane, out at Ferny Grove Way and the lands of the Turrbal People. And I am a mental health occupational therapist and clinical family therapist. And I'm super excited about this to be able to share a little bit about us, but also what we're really hoping to get out of this podcast and kind of our hopes and dreams for kind of growing the systemic community in Australia here.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about me.
Mhm.
I started my career in adult mental health here in Brisbane, and I quickly moved into child and youth mental health. And I think that was because I wanted to, I don't know, just help people more at an earlier stage in their life. One of my core values is wanting people to live their best life. And so I guess I moved into child and youth mental health, and that's where I was first introduced to systemic ideas. I was working on a team called Evolve Therapeutic Services, and that's a team where we work with young people who are in foster care and with the Department of Child Safety. And they would often be really stuck in terms of life and kind of the systems around them were really complex. And we had to learn new ways of working rather than just seeing the young people in the therapy room. And I was first introduced to systemic therapy by the wonderful Chris Hunt, who is here in Brisbane, and she was running group supervision down at the Gold Coast where I was based. And I had this sudden feeling of being unstuck with really complex situations. And I love that. I loved that as a clinician, I could think about things in different ways to kind of get me moving again. And I think that's where my passion started. And from there, I went and studied and did a 2 year course at the University of Queensland around systemic family therapy. And since then, I've worked in numerous child and youth mental health teams, and now I am in private practice doing lots of supervision, clinical work, training. And I guess I'm just really passionate about helping people and therapists live their own best lives by getting unstuck and feeling like they can be really helpful to their clients. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Laura. So my turn, I guess. For people who haven't met me, I'm Leonie White and I'm a psychologist and clinical family therapist. And my background's kind of similar to you as well, like spending time working in child and youth mental health services and the Evolve service. But even before that, I think I've always wanted to work with groups and do, I guess like kind of help earlier, help on a bigger picture level. My postgrad was actually in organizational psychology, and I really was always so interested in systems. So I think as a psychologist, we don't get a lot of that in our early training. Well, I certainly didn't when I trained. And then moving into organizational psychology a little bit more, but still no real family therapy. I think maybe we had like a dash of couples therapy because one of the faculty members was interested in that. So yeah. So when I started working in child and youth mental health, I was just so lucky to land in a team in the Logan area that had a family therapy team. And at that time, using the one-way mirror with reflecting team practice. And I just felt like, yeah, this is a better fit for me. I get to work with whole systems. But then when the Evolve service started, seeing that you could work even more broadly with more people in the system, so making the transition over there, and then also getting into training and development. So I loved that as well. I felt like I'd kind of really found my niche of, clinical work, working with groups, working with systems, doing some training. And it's probably around that time, maybe kind of a bit over 10 years ago, that I got into teaching and training.
Mhm.
And so, again, through a shared mentor of ours, Christine Hunt, started doing some work at the University of Queensland when there was the Masters in Family Therapy program, started doing professional development. And I really kind of love, I guess, my passion for family therapy is that it's so effective. People don't exist in isolation. And working with the system, sometimes even when you can't access a young person in need, if they won't come and see you, for example, you can still do so much. And that's that maneuverability when we talk about systems thinking and taking the helicopter view. Um, and then the other thing I noticed through all of my teaching and training, because we would get international students, you remember at UQ and different programs, and we get people from all different backgrounds, everything from adult forensic mental health to child and youth to private practice, managers of, child safety services, all different backgrounds. And I just loved that systemic thinking always gave something, always gave some maneuverability.
Mm.
So for me now, where it's landed, I'm in private practice. Also have a training institute for people who don't know, Phoenix Family Therapy Academy, and I'm equally wanting to support other helping professionals and grow family therapy in Australia, but also get family therapy out into the broader community. For the general public, get people talking about it and thinking about it. So if you went to a backyard barbecue and someone said, "Oh, you're a family therapist," they might actually know what that is.
I love that. And I think that's so, yeah, like I guess I noticed that too, that the systemic family therapy framework can sit across so many different professions. And that's one thing I love about it is you don't have to chuck away your profession of origin or like what all the knowledge you already have. You can
Mhm.
actually like integrate it into using it with systemic family therapy. And I get excited about that. And I guess that's what we want to showcase on this podcast is like how lots of different professions, lots of different practices, lots of different clinicians are using this framework in their practice.
Yeah, 100%. And so for me, like as a psychologist, so if we talk about our discipline of origin, a bit like our family of origin, so for me, with the discipline of origin of psychology, had a lot of training early on around, things like CBT, coping skills, psychoeducation, and that's still so helpful. But what helps me be more effective, other than working, particularly with young people, other than working with the important people in their lives to support change overall, because let's face it, 1 hour in the therapy room, 167 hours outside in the week, um, is just that idea of thinking, taking the helicopter view up, thinking systemically, and then deciding where do I land my helicopter? So I might still be doing, for example, some cognitive work. Maybe some values work. I might still be doing some coping strategies, some body-based strategies. And I might also be doing some relationship work. But it all kind of comes, from that big picture, like in understanding people more fully and holistically.
I love that.
What about for you as an OT?
Yeah, so what's really interesting with OT, and I did my in my master's, I did my project on this, so I feel like I can confidently talk about it. But in OT, we kind of have a real lens on the environment around a person anyway. So we think about like kind of more traditional OT roles, wheelchair prescription, for example, or working with young people and working a lot with their schools. Like it's all about the environment that people live in. And this is where I feel the systemic frame for me has sat really nicely, is because when I think about people, the environment that they're in is the systems that they're in. It's their family systems, it's their communities, it's the broader political system as well. So what I notice is I can totally show up as an OT, but what I'm doing is I'm deep diving into the environment around a person as well. And yeah, I think I'm the same as you. I love to think about that flexibility of, having some more choice around what we do when. And how I like to frame how I use systemic family therapy is I often use it as my hypothesis base, like my formulation base is my understanding of this person in their environment, in their relationships, in their context. And then
Mhm.
I like come in and do lots of different interventions, whether they're like an OT specific intervention around some sensory stuff, whether it's like you said, like different skills, maybe CBT or um, communication skills, either even but it's still kind of based in my understanding of this person within their context.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I just think all the time, Laura, systems thinking is just always useful.
Yeah, for sure. for
And
sure.
I guess that's why we wanted to do these stories, right? Is to get people who, where the rubber meets the road, who are actually working using this approach in whatever way, in terms of thinking or more directly, and just start to share some stories so people can, I guess, learn from each other and see how systems thinking and family therapy shows up.
I love that. And I'm super passionate about that too. I think we have a really big network. We've been brainstorming people we really want on this podcast, and they come from such diverse, different ways of working, yet
Mhm.
they all kind of have this thread of thinking systemically, seeing people within relationships. And yeah, I'm excited to hear how they see it show up, but also what are the challenges for it as well? Like, we know it's challenging sometimes to
Yeah.
think systemically and to hold that helicopter view. And so I'm also keen to kind of deep dive with people about where it's hard, where it's easy, where they get excited about it. And yeah, I'm hoping we can really have that shine through the stories we hear.
Yeah, I think we really need to do that because we've got to keep it real, right? It's one thing to say systems thinking and family therapy is so incredibly helpful, but I think we have to acknowledge that it still kind of takes a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so those are my hopes as well, what you were talking about. And then also I reckon that the people we talk to might also have a few kind of tips or some wisdoms or ideas that they've developed that hopefully, they might be able to offer that as well for food for thought.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's important that our listeners, hello out there, are thinking, because I'm assuming they're going to be trying to work systemically too, or are interested in systems and family therapy. So I guess, yeah, by sharing that and having tips, hopefully it can almost be a practical tool for people too about thinking how they might be able to tweak their practice or use one of those hot tips in their world a little bit more themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. Was there anything else that we want? This is our first little episode. I think we're both feeling really brave. Is there anything else you think that would be helpful for us to share so people know what to expect before we have our next episode with our first guests?
Well, I think expect a bit of a growth journey from Leonie and I because this is our first podcast. So we're going easy on ourselves about how this looks. So I think, I think we'll hit our stride. And I guess we're really keen to keep this at a level that's kind of easy to listen to and casual. And it's not a teaching moment necessarily. It's about whatever people need to take from each of these conversations that we have.
Yeah, it's literally just sharing stories, not saying there's any one right way to do things because
Exactly.
we know there isn't. Yeah, it's just like let's look at this systems thinking family therapy through as many different stories and lenses as possible, and just grow our community through sharing.
I love that.
Okay. Well, so is this where we sign off? Is
I
this
think so. Is this what we do?
okay? Well, we're still, as we said, we're still growing. We have some hopes for a little ending ritual, but I don't know if we've worked out exactly what that is yet.
It's a
So
stay tuned moment. Stay
it
tuned
is
and
a
watch the
stay
rituals
tuned moment.
develop.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's say goodbye to our listeners and yeah, stay tuned for our first episode.
Thanks, Leonie.